Hello everyone. Today I have something really special. So I was developing this COVID application for doctors taking care of COVID patients, and all of this I'm doing it for free. So I thought I'll just show you how I built this and what are the different aspects of building an EHR from scratch. So this is the patient screen. You can see there are multiple patients here. And all of this is done using just a FHIR server. There is no other intermediary server that's storing all of the patient records. You can create a new patient and, let's just call it patient X, uh, female, and it was born just now. Right, and there are other details. I'm not going to fill that up. And all of this gets stored on a FHIR server. And in this episode, we'll be taking a look at how we can do this, which is talking directly to a FHIR server, um, persisting patient information, getting it back. So the difference between a traditional system and this is that this is FHIR first, in that you are creating all of these resources directly on the front end, and then you are persisting them on a FHIR server. And this has a lot of advantages. So the first thing is that a lot of cloud providers provide FHIR as a service, FHIR as an API. If you take Azure, Google, AWS, all of them have some sort of a FHIR API in place. So you don't have to think about managing all of that data, the confidentiality of that, and nothing. You just have access to a FHIR API and you're good to go. And the second thing is, most of the times you may not have control over the database. You may be developing an application on top of an existing EHR like Cerner or Epic or Allscripts, and they provide you with a smart on FHIR interface, and your app should talk in FHIR. So that's what we'll be taking a look at today: how to build this, how to get this going, and I'll start off with a completely fresh project. I'm just going to close this down. I'm going to stop everything that's running here. There is a Docker instance going on here. So you need to have Docker installed and Docker Compose so you can easily get started with the service. But you can also use any FHIR API that you have. If you have something like Azure FHIR or 8box by Health Samurai, you can use that as well. So I'm just going to quit all of this, close this up, and yeah, here now I have a terminal here, and this is running inside a Linux machine inside my Windows, but it's going to be the same more or less. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a front-end application. The front-end application is going to talk directly to our services, in this case, a FHIR API. So first thing I'm going to do is npm init at white.js/app. So White is a type of bundler, which is it's a modern type of bundler, and I'm just going to name this FHIR demographics because we're dealing with patient data first, right? So it's going to be in Svelte. Again, Svelte is it's a front end framework. You can use React, you can use Angular, anything works here. But I really like Svelte, so I'm just going to go with that. And it's asking me if I want just Svelte or Svelte with TypeScript. I'm going to go with TypeScript. So I'm just going to cd into this folder, and I'm going to start the install. While that installs, I'll just like to talk about what White.js is, and okay, that finished installing. So this is the difference between White and other types of frameworks. It's really fast in deploying things because it bundles them as ES modules. So you can look them up. And I also have developed another package called Medblocks UI that makes it very easy to develop forms on on healthcare applications. So you will see that shortly. So this npm install is done, but I'm also going to install Tailwind CSS because I love class-based utilities. So let's install Tailwind CSS, some auto prefixer, and I think there are a couple of other things also that I need to install. Tailwind, Tailwind CSS White. Just going to check out the installation steps. Yeah, so I need to install all of these, and you're installing them as development dependencies, so it shouldn't be a problem when you're actually deploying them. Only what you need will really go into the package. So that's done. So let's initialize a Tailwind project, and that's done. So now let's open up this in VS Code. So yeah, we've got our app.svelte, we've got our Tailwind config all set. So let's just do npm run dev, and you see it's already up and running, and that's our Svelte project in place. So this is a reactive application. You can manage the state, you can do all sorts of things on the front end. Now let's stop this, and we need a FHIR API first. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a Docker Compose file. So this file will have an instance of HAPI running. So I already have a configuration file from my previous thing. I'm just going to copy and paste that. I'm not going to do it from scratch. So I'll explain it to you though, what does what. So okay, this has a lot of other things as well, which I'll get to in future episodes. But for now, we only need FHIR and the FHIR DB. So services, in Docker Compose, you have services which are different containers running inside your Docker environment. So we have FHIR and we have FHIR DB, and just fix the indentation a little bit. So this is a HAPI server, which it's a complete JPA server running on port 8090. And the FHIR DB is a Postgres DB, and it's just it's just a Postgres image running with these credentials. Now you need to be careful. If you change the name of the FHIR DB, you also need to change it here. So this is the URL that Docker takes internally to connect with the Postgres instance. And these are all just environmental variables that I want to set. So I'm setting subscriptions to true. I'm setting, the ID, I don't want it to be sequential. I want it to be a UUID. So I'm doing this as well. And everything else is just for the Postgres service. Now, these are the services. Now we also need to define volumes. So now what volumes do is it basically gives us the ability to persist all of this data. So volumes go like that. I think I need to mention the version number as well on the top. Yeah, this is the version for Docker Compose. Okay, seems good. This DB data is not needed because FHIR DB data, we are binding it right here. And we are binding that to the Postgres data directory. This is where Postgres stores its data. Right, so I'm just checking if this is recording. Yep, it's recording. Okay, now let's do a Docker Compose up first. And you see that it's starting it all up. Now the HAPI project takes some time to get started. You'll need to wait about 2 minutes, not 2 minutes, maybe like a minute before it starts. So once this has initialized, you will be able to see on localhost 8090/FHIR, that will be the base URL of the FHIR server, right? So this is loading still because this has not initialized. So once it says something like server initialized, it should be running. So I'm just going to wait till, okay. Yeah, it started protocol handler HTTP 8080. So it's ready. So here we can see that operation outcome. This is the base URL of the FHIR server, unable to handle this request. So it's running. It's up and running. So if you check metadata, you can see the capability statement, and it's a HAPI R4 server running, right? So now we have our FHIR instance running. So now let's start building an application that will use this API and make everything with it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of, let this run in a separate terminal. I'm going to open another terminal and run npm run dev. So let that, start in the background. And Svelte comes with all of this initial boilerplate code. I'm just going to get rid of all of this styling. So now, yeah, it looks like crap, but that's what we are going for. So first, we need to install Medblocks UI. So that's the package, and you can see here, Medblocks UI. It's on npm. and it's something that I built myself, but it's a really good way to build healthcare related forms. It's completely open source. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to it was this is the npm directory. I'm going to go to GitHub Medblocks UI. So that there is some there is a link to the documentation here. So it will tell you how to install Medblocks UI in different frameworks. So the basic initial thing is you just do Medblocks install, npm install Medblocks UI. Let's do that. So after that, you need to import these two things into a base app file. So we'll just do that here in our app.svelte. So it'll be pretty much the same if you're doing, okay, this should be this quotes, and npm run dev. Yep, it's running. And now let's just test if Medblocks UI is working. So Medblocks UI is a collection of different web components. So web components are basically just so this is a date component, and you can select the date, and this is called MB date. And just like that, we have for text, for coded text, for other things. I'll add other things soon, but yeah, let's just test if MB input works. So under hello TypeScript, let's say MB input, and let's label this test input, and let's check, and it shows up here, test input. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to build an app from scratch. So now what I want is I want this patient data at the end of the day. I want this patient resource to be generated from the front end, but I also wanted to be able to edit this data in case it's already present, right? So the way we do that is first we'll start off with creating a form. So in Medblocks here, there is something called MB FHIR form. So this is for FHIR resources. You can directly generate FHIR resources from this. And I'll tell you how. So what you do first is we need this resource type patient inside the form. We need that no matter what is there. So there is a special type called MB context. So these are just like normal elements, but it makes it simpler to build these applications. That's why I'm using this. You can actually do it your own way too, as long as you can get the FHIR resource out and get it back in, that's fine. So here there is something called the path. So now the path is where you want the data element to bind to. So here we need it to be at resource type, right? So the resource type should be this, and the data should be patient. Okay, now let's go back to our thing, and here you see it's completely empty. There is literally nothing here. That's because the context doesn't really show, and you don't want it to show. But if you check what is going on here, dot export, you can see that you get this resource type patient here already. So now let's see what all we can add, what other things that we need to add. So here again, we have an identifier Aadhaar. So before that, let's go with the name first. So the name is obviously a text input. You want it to be a text input. So let's do MB input. And the path here is pretty important. So you see that the name is actually in an array, and then it's inside given. So you can represent this using a simple path. So that is name. And since it's inside an array, you want it to be the first element of the array. And then inside that, you want it to be dot given, right? And let's just label it name, right? And you can see that it shows this here. But before that, before this, let's put some headers, patient registration class. Let's just go with text to Excel font semi-bold. See how that looks. Yeah, that looks about okay. Let's give it some yeah, let's give it some font serif, or let's go with sans for now. Oh, okay, I think it didn't load the font properly. Okay, I think I got it. You need to initialize this first. You need to import all of these utilities. So I'm going to CSS. I'm just going to import all of these into this. Yeah, and now, yep, now we'll get a much better looking UI. We need to add a lot of padding, borders, and all that. We'll do that later. So let's just get to the core of this. So now here we've added the name, right? So we've added the name, and if I say Sidharth, Ramesh, and you go to the form. So ideally, you would not be doing all of these functions. You will just be listening to it once it submits. But to see what exactly is going on, I'm going to do all of this. And you can see that now when I'm exporting the form, I'm just selecting this particular form and I'm doing all of these functions. You see that there is a resource type patient and there is a name 0 given Sidharth Ramesh. Now this corresponds exactly to the data structure here, right? So now let's go ahead and do all of those other things also. So I'm not going to go one by one. I'm just going to copy it from the previous project. So I think you can understand what I'm getting at here. So yeah, so in the previous project, we have another thing called MB date, which directly binds to the birth date. So let's do that. Date of birth. And here again, there is something called MB buttons, which you can choose to display options for people to choose. So gender is something that it can be male, female, or other. So MB buttons is a good thing for that. You can also make it a select if you want. So if you take a look at this, it looks like this now. So there isn't enough spacing between all of these elements. So let's space them out by making it a flex column and giving it a gap of about 3. That did not work again. Let's see what's happening. Okay, you need to tell that it's a display flex first. Yeah. So now you have this going on. Before all of that, let's just put it in a nice div, give it some padding. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy it from the layout. So here, you have this nice looking thing. So let's just paste that here, and now, yes, it looks much better. It looks, it has a lot of padding going on. I'm just going to add a little bit more padding to the top. Yeah, much better. So patient registration, name, date of birth, gender, all of this is there. So for now, let's just stick to these. And I think you get the point how you can create your own, data points based on these paths, right? So name 0 given. And the thing about MB context is that it'll only output if something is present in that path. So if there is no name, if there is no date of birth, then you ideally wouldn't get the context. So that's why we are using MB context there. So now let's just add a submit button here. Okay, I'm going to add something called MB submit. And here again, inside that, I'm allowed to put any button. So I'm just going to put SL button. Again, I'm a huge fan of web components, so I'm just using web components for everything, but you don't need to use web components, right? So class, no, this has a type. So the reason that this works is because we also have imported Shoelace. So Shoelace is another framework for building nice looking UIs. So I'm just leveraging all of this existing technology to build this out instead of taking something like Bootstrap, but it's exactly the same. It's kind of like Bootstrap, but you use it using web components. So I think this looks good. So I'm just going to this submit button. What it does is on clicking, it emits an event called submit. So it will emit it on the MB FHIR form. So the way you listen to events in Svelte is using on MB submit. So handle submit, right? So I'm just going to make a function handle submit. It's going to have an event, which is a custom event. And I'm just going to console.log e.target.data. So now the target is actually, okay, I'm just going to make this any because so that TypeScript doesn't complain. So the target is going to be the MB FHIR form, and the data of that is going to be what we are getting out of it. So let's see how that looks like. Okay, that's the hot reloading doing its thing. So Sidharth, Ramesh, the date of birth, I'm 8/9/1997, male. And let's just submit that. And you can see here that we've gotten our FHIR resource, right? So the gender, again, here you see that the name is exactly not proper. And that's because we're getting the data out of this directly. But what you should get is the detail from the event, console.log e.detail. So internally, the MB FHIR form does some serializations to get the detail out. So the detail will be the exact FHIR resource. So now let's try. Now let's stop console logging this and just get the detail. 8/9/1997, male, submit. And here you see that we've gotten our FHIR resource already. And this is a completely valid FHIR resource. And what we are going to do now is we are going to post it to a server as soon as we get this information. So in handle submit, we will have a thing called loading, and we'll set it to false. And here in this SL button, let's just pass in loading. It takes this in and make sure that if it's loading, it will show this spinnery thing. So this is a Boolean. It's okay. So now what next is we need Axios. We need some way to communicate with the FHIR API, right? So let's install Axios. Okay. So now let's import Axios. Import Axios from Axios. Okay. Now what we have to do is we need to define which URL we are going to talk to. The way I'm going to do that is, for now, I'm just going to do axios.post. The URL is going to be http localhost 8090/patient. And the data is going to be e.detail. Right, so this is going to be const r equals axios.post, and I'm just going to console.log r.data. Okay. Oh, now I need to await this because it's a async function. Yep, so that should work now. Now once we enter our name and okay, I need to start the dev server again. So once, let's see. Okay, it's ready. So Sidharth Ramesh, date of birth 8/9/1997, male, submit. Okay, there is, okay, has been blocked by course policy is present. I thought the server allowed course by default, but apparently not. So what we did wrong was this is not /patient, it is /FHIR/patient. And now let's try it. I'm just gonna keep the console open. Okay. Sidharth 8/9/1997, male, submit. And yeah, we just posted our FHIR resource to the server. Okay, and let's just verify that it's actually there by going to FHIR/patient. And we can see that it's actually there. Now, next we'll see how we can get this data back and display it as a list. We'll also look at how to edit this data and how you can update it on the FHIR server.